Okay, so for this part of the project we're looking at the frame here, fully complete and fixed and glued together. We've got the back of it has been rebaited for the mirror to go into. So that's really what it should look like when complete. But just to look at some drawings and what we have involved there's some plans, again just a 3D showing the frame together. And we've got an exploded view of the frame together there as well. So what we have there is two cross halving joints with the kind of shoulders cut in a small bit on either side, which is common to see on the bench test. And we've got two corner bridle joints on the bottom part of the project. Here is a completed corner bridle joint like that. So the bottom two corners of the project, we have a piece that looks like this and a piece that looks like that, and they should slot into each other, nice and firm and secure fit on those. Alright, the top part, that cross halving joint with a small part of it here. So we've got one piece there with the trench in it, another piece that's been trenched out, but also both of the shoulders have been narrowed, and that will slot in to itself like so there as well. Okay, so just to mark it out, we're going to start off with the side pieces. With the full length piece, you have to remember there's going to be waist on both sides of the piece. We have the plans here, by the way. This is the two side pieces, so the elevation and in view of the side piece, elevation and plan of the bottom, and elevation and plan of the top piece. But our focus for the moment is going to be in here on the side piece. The full length of the side piece is 320 millimeters, which we can see there. So we're going to mark off our waist on that and mark our 320 millimeters. We'll get our piece of wood. As always, we'll mark face side and face edge of the piece. We'll go over to one side, marking 10 millimeters of waist. Make sure the stock of your tri-square is tight up against the face edge, and we'll draw that line there. We'll set a ruler here now, 320 millimeters in length. We've only got 300 millimeters on the steel ruler, so we'll set our ruler there. We will mark 300 with a dot, and then we'll move over another 20 to mark off our 320 millimeters. We've got waist there, and we've got waist there. We'll take our tri-square and we'll square those lines all the way around, making sure, as always, that the stock of the tri-square is tight against either the face side or the face edge. Make sure the stock of the tri-square is also just tight against the wood as well. Make sure the lines are nice and straight. Mark our X's for waist all the way around. And that will give us the full length of the piece to start off. Next thing we'll do is down in the bottom corner, we'll start working on marking our bridle joint. So we'll take our plans. You can see here that the bridle joint is 44 millimeters length, and then these three lines are 6, 8 and 6, these three sections there. So down in this bottom corner here, we're going to set our ruler on the waistline. We're going to measure up 44 millimeters, be precise as we can with that. Tri-square tight against the face edge, and we'll draw our line. Our tri-square, and we'll square that line all the way around. Okay. Now, next we're going to mark the lines, the 6, 8 and 6 for the bridle joint. To mark those lines, we get ourselves a mortise gauge, and as usual with the mortise gauge, you set the distance between the two pins first. So you put it into the vise, set yourself a distance of 8 millimeters here and 6 millimeters from the stock to the first pin. So we've got 6 here and 8 here. Once that is done, You have to make sure that the stock of the mortise gauge is always against either the face side or the face edge. So I'm going to start off this way. I am going to punch 2 holes in there, stop myself from going too far past it, and as always I'm going to push the mortise gauge away from myself, make sure the mortise gauge is tight against the edge of the piece of wood, and I'm going to gauge those 2 lines. Now, end grain is always quite tricky, so I would suggest using the vise. So I'm going to bring this over here, put the piece into the vise, and when I'm gauging across the top of the piece, use 2 hands, keep it tight against it, and we can gauge across there. There. You can even use the vise for the other part as well if you like. So again, my face side is there, so I am pushing that up along there. Alright. Now, over here, I'm just going to pencil in those lines. And I now need to make sure that I get my waist on the right place with this piece here. So if you were to look at the long piece, you can see the waist is in the middle of that. So we're going to mark our waist in the middle of it. Alright, and that's the bridle joint part of this piece done. Now, it's always good practice to mark out the whole piece first. So we're now going to go up here and we're going to mark the part of the cross halving joint. So we can see there we've got a measurement of 20 millimeters and then 44, and the depth of the trench is 10 millimeters, and the shoulders of the joint come in 5 millimeters there. So 20 and 44 first of all. So I'm going to go to the opposite end of the piece. Turn around. So there's my bridle joint. I'm going to go to the opposite end of the piece, and I'm going to come in from this side, my 20. Get my tri-square, draw my line, and then mark in my 44. Tri-square, and draw my line. Square those 2 lines all the way around. There, 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 and there. There and there. Marking gauge then, to get to my trench, my marking gauge is already set. I've set that to 10 millimeters, so the pin to the stock, 10 millimeters. Face side is there. I'll punch a hole on this side of it to make sure I don't go past it, and lightly gauge this line a couple of times across there. Turn it around, same thing. Make sure that the stock of the tri-square is up against the face side of the piece of wood, and that is the depth of that trench done. I'm going to mark my waist for that trench. It's not just simply a trench like that, we also have to cut out the shoulders of that slightly. So once again we're going to use a marking gauge. I'm going to set my marking gauge this time to 5 millimeters according to the plans. So there's my 5. Type in pencil, just show that measurement there. Here it shows us that we come in 5 millimeters for either of the shoulders of that joint. And we are going to gauge a line there. Down the other side also. And also on this side here. And there. So what we have are the shoulders, which have also to be cut out of the piece. So that there is waist as well. And that essentially will look something like that when it's been cut out. Alright, the last thing that needs to be marked on this, small thing that's often forgot, is we've got corners to cut off of the top of that, just a little design on the top of the piece. It's on the same end where that cross halving joint is, so all we simply have to do is measure in 5 millimeters here, measure down 5mm there, mark it with a dot and join those two corners. Get my tri-square, bring it around to the other side, 5mm there. We already have our marking there, and that's that side done. Same on the other side, so we're going to come in 5mm here. We're going to go down 5mm there. Join those. Work our way across. Across 5mm and join those. All our waist is properly marked, so we know exactly what's being cut and what's not. And that there is that full piece completely marked out. Alright, so we're now going to go on to the bottom part of the frame. So once again, we have the frame of the project. You can see there. And we are going to focus in on this bottom part. As we know, we have two bridle joints to work on either side. So if we just look at the exploded view of this, there's the frame put together first of all. There's the piece exploded. We've got a bridle joint down here and a bridle joint down there. Just to show the bridle joint what it should look like when it's been made and put together, we've got two pieces like this to do. That's the side piece. The bottom piece contains these two pieces like this. There are two sides like that. Okay, so the plans of the bottom of the frame we have here. The first thing we want to look at is the fact that it's 230mm long, and we can go from there to the deck. So I just marked the frame bottom so we know what we're talking about. We've got a face side and a face edge. As always, we're going to come in and we're going to mark our waist first of all. So we're going to measure in 10mm. Tri-square, nice and tight to the edge, against the face edge, and that is our 10mm of waist. And then I'm going to put a ruler on that waistline, and we're going to measure across 230mm. See a ruler, and get our tri-square and draw our line there. That gives us the 230mm length of the piece. We can now just square those two lines around. As always, we need to make sure that the tri-square stock is tight against either the face side or the face edge. So the length and the waist for the bottom of the frame is complete there. Next we're going to go and we're going to mark these parts of the bridle joint. So we can see there that comes in 44 from both sides, and we have 686 for those three lines there, for those two parts there. So steel ruler on the waistline there. Steel ruler on the waistline. We're going to measure across 44. Get my tri-square and draw that one there. Also measure across 44 from this side. Slightly awkward measurement. Getting good close so we can see what we're doing. Square those two lines all the way around. The main part of that done. Now what we need to do is mark the shoulders of the bridle joint in place. Mortise gauge will be used once again. The plans have told us that it's 686. So with our mortise gauge, as always, we set the gap between the two pins first. We have that at 8, and the gap from the first pin back to the stock is 6. So 6 here and 8 here. but we always set this distance here first, so that it works out. Vise is always helpful to use when we're using the mortise blade. It can be a slightly awkward tool, so we'll put the piece into the vise, and our face side is there, so I'm going to put the piece into the vise. 2 hands I can use with this now. Just lift it up a small bit so it fits, and I can now gauge along there, and I'll also gauge my line along there. Let's just lift it a little bit more. Okay, I'll then do my end grains, put the piece into the vise. 2 hands are helpful, always working off the face side. Bring it around to this side here, and I'll work my way down there as well. Face side there, and I can do the face edge, or the end grain there. Alright, so you notice there, every bit of marking gauge work I've been doing, I've been working off of the face side. That just helps with the accuracy of my work, and I can now just use my pencil to mark in those lines. There. And now once again, if we're to look at our plans, we can see that the middle part of the bridle joint is kept, the outsides are the waist, so it's very, very important that we get that right, and we mark the outside shoulders are going to be cut off of this bridle joint. Better off getting that waist marked clearly and early, so you know exactly what you're doing with that. Nice and clear to have that waist marked. Now we can see from marking the other piece that the waist is in the middle of that part on the outsides, so that will slot in nicely to form the bridle joint that we are looking for. Alright, so that's basically what the bottom of the frame should look like when it's completely marked out. Okay, so now we're going to look at the top piece of the frame, so this piece across here. We have a little cross halving joint to mark out with the shoulders narrowed slightly. I'm going to look at what that cross halving joint should look like when it comes together. This is just a little trench is all we have to mark on that, the top piece, and that will go into the side piece, which will be there. Okay, looking at the plan, you can see from the plans that the piece from one end to the other is 270 millimeters. With 25 and 34 to come across for the trench work. So we'll just mark the full length of the piece first of all. I've labelled that frame top just so it's nice and clear to see. Face side, face edge, as always, will come in 10 millimeters for our first piece of waist. Our tri-square, and nice and tight, draw our first line for our first piece of waist. So as we said, 270 millimeters for this piece. Set our ruler down there, we'll go all the way across and mark 270. So as I said, our ruler is on the waistline and across 270 for that piece. We will get our tri-square and draw that line all the way around. So in case that we're just marking out our waist. On both sides of the piece, line the tri-square across here, and as always make sure the tri-square is tight up against either the face side or the face edge. That's the length of this mark. So now we have to mark 2 trenches. The first piece is the first trench is across 25 and then 34. The second one is exactly the same. So 25. Rulers on the waistline, 25 millimeters, tri-square nice and tight against the edge, and I go go up to my line. I'll then go 34 there, and try square my line there. Okay. Over to the other side, we'll do the exact same thing. So we set this to 25 and draw a line, and 34 and draw the line. Now this is a trench, so we just need to draw these two lines down both of the edges of the piece of the wood. They're not needed down the back of the piece of wood. So we will get our tray square and draw a line down the edges of the piece. So we can see we have those marked there. There's no need for those lines down the back. It's a trench. Depth of the trench according to the plans is 10 millimeters. We set our marking gauge to a depth of 10. Face side is there. Use the vise if you think you need to. Punch a hole in that side and gauge lightly a number of times across there. Flip it over. Same thing. Punch a hole in there. And gauge across there. Same on this side, face side is there. Flip it over, as always working off of the face side. That will help improve the accuracy of our work. Place there, place there, there. And that's the trench work marked. Now the last thing that we have to just do is the little design. We have a couple of little angles to cut off. The plans will tell us that they are the same as the angles that we have on the frame side, which is 5 millimeters down and 5 millimeters across. So both sides of the piece, we now need to measure down 5 millimeters there, 5 millimeters there, 5 millimeters there, 5 millimeters there. Now the same has to be done across. We'll just mark these with a little dot. I like to mark all the dots first, and we'll draw them in afterwards. There and there. So then it's just a case of joining those dots so that we can cut them off afterwards. I'll just trace square line across there as well, it's helpful when you're lining up the saw. You can mark the rest all the way around there. Now, same on the other side. So 5 millimeters there, 5 millimeters there, 5 millimeters there, 5 millimeters there, same on the other side. Mark all the dots first, and then we can just join those around like so. Then we'll just try to square those lines across also. And then it's just a case of marking the X's, and that completes the marking out of the top of the frame. So a trench here, a trench there, waist on both sides, and then just your little angles to be cut off on those. Okay, so that's that piece complete. Okay, so just the cutting out of the bottom piece for starters. We're going to start working on the bridle joint. It's important that we follow the correct sequence for this. What we're going to do is we're going to cut down the shoulders of it. We're going to cut off the waist and then cut off the shoulders. It's important that we follow that sequence. Tools we're going to use: bench hook and tenon saw. When it comes to cutting down into the end grain of a piece of wood like that, as we all know, it can be quite difficult to get straight, so it's best off that we follow the correct procedures. So I have my piece there set up, and I'm going to start off. I have to remember that the waist is on the outside, so I'm going to make sure I cut on the waist side of the line with my tenon saw. And I'm going to go step one, start off. I cut roughly just about 5mm down into the piece of wood. Okay, now if I was to continue with that cut, there's a good chance that could go a little bit off for me. So what we do is we follow the steps, we lean the piece forward. We're going to make the cut on just this side first of all. So I'm going to wash my line. Right, so I'm cutting just there. Right, at an angle, stop at the line there, turn it around, and do the same thing. So I've cut on that side, I haven't even got to this side. I can now focus solely on this side here. Watching the line. Inside the piece of wood there should be a triangular shape, because we've cut at an angle that way, so we now just need to straighten it up and finish off that cut. By doing that, it should be quite straightforward to cut down there. And that side. Same procedure needs to start all over again on the other side. So step one, start off your cut with the piece straight. Just cut down 4 or 5mm. Tilt the piece away from us. Follow the line. Turn the piece around. Tilt it away from us. Watch the line. Make sure we stop at the correct place. Once again, we've cut like that. There's a triangular piece of wood in the middle there. We'll straighten that up, and we will cut down there. Making sure that we stop on the line there. Okay, so that's the best way to make sure that we go nice and straight down there. Now next we need to make sure we cut off the waist and then cut off the shoulders. That's the best practice, the best way to do that. So I'll move this back. I'm going to get my bench hook. Hold the piece secure in the bench hook. Line it up on that waistline, hold it secure. Stop and check the other side. That all the way through. Come off in 3 little pieces. Alright, the waist has been cut off now. It's just a case of cutting off this shoulder and that shoulder. So once again, I'll hold it into the bench hook. Draw the saw back a few times. That's the first shoulder cut off. So, then we'll turn it around and same on the other side. And that leaves us with that part of the bridle joint. Okay? Okay, so that's the part of the bridle joint we've done so far. On the bottom of the frame, we're now going to go onto the side of the frame, and we're going to look at the bridle joint part here. The waist is in the middle, so we're going to do the same procedure, cutting straight down, but to make sure we cut out the middle part correctly first of all. So, piece into the vise, nice and low. camera over, and as usual we're going to start off with the steps involved. So we will make sure it's secure. Start off in a cut. 3 or 4 millimeters down. Tilt the piece away from ourselves. Watch the line. Make sure we stop our cut at the correct place, which is just there. Turn the piece around, tilt it away from ourselves. Follow the line, make sure we stop in the correct place, straighten it up. Once again we have that triangular piece of wood left inside there that we need to cut down. So hold that there and let that guide us down. Make sure we stop in the correct place. Same steps must be carried out all over again, so keep the piece straight. Start off the saw. Put yourself down 3 or 4 millimeters. Tilt away from ourselves. Follow the line. Make sure we stop in the correct place. Turn the piece around. Stop in the correct place, straighten it up for that final cut to bring us straight down to the bottom. Okay, at that point then, we first of all need to cut off the end waist and then use a coping saw to cut out that middle part. So move to the back, we'll use the bench hook, the tenon saw to cut off the end waist. Set that like so, nice and secure. The waist will come off in 3 parts, and then for this middle part we're going to use a coping saw to cut that out. So once again we will set that up like so, into the vise. Camera over. Coping saw down into it, and then we're going to watch the line. Down a little more, you see. So the coping saw, we're going to watch that line. Cut and turn, nice and gently. Cut and turn. Constantly checking both sides. The tricky part is getting it to turn first, and once we're happy enough, we just constantly stop and check both sides, and that there should pop out first. Okay, and then that should allow our bridle joint to fit into place, nice and secure, like so. Okay, so now we'll go on to the cross halving joint of the frame, the top part of it. So as we can see, it's a standard enough cross halving joint, except the shoulders have been narrowed in slightly on it to make it work. You can see where that is on the plans. We have it up here on the top 2 parts of the frame. So we finished off the bridle joint there, so we're now going to stay on the same piece of wood and we're going to work on that. The bottom part of it is a full trench, so we're going to treat that like just a full standard trench going all the way across, and then we're going to be left with this little shoulder here on the side that's actually waist there, and we're going to cut that off as well, chisel that off afterwards. Okay, so we'll approach this section here like one full trench to start things off. So we'll bring that over there, the usual steps involved with trench work. We're going to make cuts down the sides. So I'm going to put the piece into the vise, nice and secure. Make sure both sides of the trench are above the vise. Tenon saw. And we're going to start off our first cut on the waist side of the line. Always good to stop and check the other side and make sure we don't go past the line. Over to the other side of the trench. Start off our cut. Stop and check. And we'll go there, and we'll also make one relief cut in the middle. Stop and check, and there we are. At that point then, just going to straighten a bit more on the vise. At that point then, 18mm chisel, and mallet. The usual trenching principles are always start off with the chisel upside down. It's easier to make a hill that way. Get down nice and close to the piece and start trenching out small bits and work yourself by making a hill down as far as the trench line. Small bits at a time being chipped out there. Same over on this side. Made our hill on that side. Then turn the piece around. Nice and secure in the vise. Chisel is still upside down. Small bites and work your way down the hill. Okay, over here. Alright, so we have a hill made on both sides now. At this point I'll turn the chisel back around. I'll go to the top of the hill and start chiseling down as flat as I can. Always making sure that I never go all the way across the piece, because there's a chance then you're going to bust out the piece there. So I'll just chisel out small bits, making sure that I go roughly half or a little over halfway across. If I want to work on that side, I'll just turn the piece around. Work my way down until I'm almost flat. And when you're almost finished, you can then put the mallet down. Start chiseling by hand. 2 hands on the chisel when you're chiseling by hand. Smoothing off that trench. And get it as flat and level as you possibly can. Again, never going all the way across. I'm chiseling on this half. Do a little bit of work there. I will turn the piece around. Again, working by hand. And there is my trench done there. Alright. Happy enough with that for the moment. Might need a small bit of paring down as time goes on, we'll see from there. Now, as we said, we still have these 2 little small shoulders to take out. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to cut down here and cut down here and make a relief cut in the middle. So I'll put the piece into the vise. There. Use my tenon saw. Slight cut there. And a little cut there. will also make a relief cut in the middle. Now, it can be a little bit risky chiseling all the way across like that because it can break out. So I find a good way of working this is with the chisel upside down. We can just pare it down like that. Now you can use the mallet if you like. So tap that down there, keeping an eye on the line, I don't go past it. And go around to the other side. I'll do the same over here. Now, small bits at a time are the key here. And making sure you don't go down past the line. Is also very important. As you can see, we're working from both sides. Turn the piece around, I'll do that again just so it's clear to see. So we've got the saw and we'll cut down to the line there, down to the line there, and in the middle also. We're going to start off, chisel is upside down. Turn around, and then we're going to go over here also. Always watching that line and making sure that you don't go down below the line. That's there. That will give us those two shoulder cuts down like so. Alright. Now just before we finish off the other part of this cross halving joint, we might as well just cut off this waist and cut off these angles as well. A small little job with the bench hook. So I'll move that back a little bit. I'm going to get the bench hook into place. And first of all, I'm going to cut off this waist. So I'm going to line myself up there. So stop and check the line on the other side. Put that off there. And then to get these angles off here, let's get our tenon saw, hold it at the angle. Watch my line. We've got it up there. Turn that around. I don't move my position. And I cut that angle off there. And that's that piece done. Okay, so fully complete in that position there. Alright, so just the final part then. We finished off that full side piece and we're now going to just make the trench for the top of the frame so that fits into place there, and then cut off the corners on that. Again, what we have basically is a very, very basic trench there, so we'll work through that. So into the vise. Down a little bit. Get our tenon saw. We'll make our two cuts on the sides. Stop and check the other side to make sure you don't go past. Same over here. Stop and check. There. We'll also make a relief cut in the middle. We're going to use a 12mm chisel here now because it's a slightly narrower trench. And there's your mallet, and as always the chisel we start off upside down just to work on the hills. So light taps, bites at a time. One hill. Work our way up that side. Turn the piece around. Work on the hill on this side. Chisel is still upside down. Alright, so the hill is made on both sides now, so I'm going to turn the chisel around, go to the top of the hill, and now just start chiseling down, working my way down. As always, I make sure to never go all the way across. I'm working on this half, I'll turn it around and work from the other side then. So I'll just do a little bit more work here. There. Turn it around. Use the mallet still, tapping out a bit more. And we're almost down. Put the mallet down. And we're going to work by hand to flatten it out. Again, making sure that I never go all the way across. I'm working about halfway or a little over halfway across at the moment. If I want to work on this part, I want to turn it around and work by hand around there. Continue to flatten it out. Get the 18mm chisel if I feel I need to. Go a little bit lower there. On that. And then, before we go any further, then we can work on cutting off this waist and cutting off this as well. So we're going to bring the bench hook into play on that there. So, bench hook. We'll first of all cut off the waist on the end. Stop and check the line on the other side. All the way through. I'll cut off my angle down here. Flip it over. Cut off my angle. Down there. Then it's just a case of checking the fit on the joint. And there is our work cross halving joint. A small bit of paring might be needed to get down a little bit lower, but we've got a fairly good fit at that. Okay, that's that piece complete then.